Thank you. All right, so I'm kind of stuck here in the corner. My apologies. We can only get this to work on the computer here. But that was a perfect segue into my story. But I wanted to tell you about a time when I was your age. How do we start the slideshow here, folks? Cool. All right. So the title of this one is Culiacan Overnight. Anybody ever heard of Culiacan down in Mexico? Not even a single hand. Oh, we see one. Awesome. Thank you, Song. Has anybody heard any of my stories in the past? Anybody hear the first one about surviving a blizzard on a motorcycle, relying on certain body fluids? A couple people? Yeah. How about last year's, where I was on a plane and a shaman reached into my shoulder and actually fixed a ripped muscle? More hands? Okay. So today it's even more strange, if you can believe that. So the year's 1996. I just finished swimming for the University of Arizona, and I was sick at staring at that black line in the wild pool. So I decided I wanted an adventure. So I was riding down the street on my mountain bike, and I saw this scuba dive company called Adventure Quest. I went in there, and it was really dive of a dive shop. It was horrible condition. Pictures all over the walls, everybody passing around alcohol. The guy that owned the company, his name was Lane Larson. And so I went in there and I said, look, I'm about to finish college. I just retired from swimming. I want an adventure. What do you got? He goes, well, if you're serious, you need to join me and the driver tonight. And we're going to head out to the compound. He goes, you got to go outside of Tucson, join this compound, the Palms. We go out there, and he literally has an entire collection of every extreme expedition type of gear. He has airplanes and pontoons. He has every kind of kayak, every kind of boat, rock climbing gear, and I mean by the 30s, he has tons of this gear. But he also has off-road school buses, and he has Mexican speedboats called pongos. He has everything, and I'm just blown away. I've never seen this level of expedition gear. And so what he's telling me is basically he has a palm plantation nursery, but then he also runs these crazy expeditions. And he had this backhoe in the yard, and the yard was all pockmarked with giant digging holes from the backhoe. And I was like, what's going on with the backhoe, dude? And he goes, well, I have 2 sons, and they're actually trying to kill me. So they literally, a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old was using all this heavy equipment and digging pitfalls and foot snares and trebuchets and all these things trying to kill Dad, using all this expedition gear. And I was thinking, okay, that might have been a red flag. Probably should have questioned what we were about to do. But we moved forward. So he said the quest for literally this weekend, this was on a Thursday, and so he's like, we got to go deep into Mexico, and the thing is they give fishing licenses to the boats in Mexico. So if you lose your boat, you lose your entire family's income. So he's like, some families have hired me to go down there and try and find these sunken boats that were sunk in the last hurricane, and we're going to try and lift them. He goes, are you on? And I was like, yeah, sign me up. He goes, all right. So this is going to be the route. And so literally Tucson, where the University of Arizona was, and we're going to head straight down Mexico, the town of Culiacan. You can actually see the boat there off the shore at Culiacan. Has anybody ever heard of Sinaloa in the area of Mexico? So yeah, hopefully you've heard why I'm actually highlighting that. That's a premonition for the story. So he has this brand new thing called a GPS. This is back in '96. And so he plots the whole course. I'm blown away that you can actually navigate at that time. But he's like, we're going to pick you up at 3 a.m. So be ready. Tonight, we're going to show up at your place. Next person shows up in this strange, weird Ford Econoline van. The music is pumping. The lights are blinking to the beat. And the guy that steps out is this surfer, blonde, hippie dude. There's AI for him. He's shirtless. He has nipple piercings. And he's covered in tattoos. And so when I go to get in the van, I open the doors incorrectly and they jam. So if you open the wrong door, the whole thing jams. Can't get in. So he's like, oh, dude, and he helps me out. We load up the van with all my dive gear. So as soon as we're in the car driving, he introduces himself. He's like, hey, I'm Ryan, I'm our driver. And then he gets into his story. He literally had just been taken out of an attempted suicide. And so he had literally overdosed, jumped into a pool, tried to drown himself, died 3 times. They were able to resuscitate him, and he was recently out of the hospital. That's our driver. Probably a second red flag for this adventure expedition. He's driving, and he typically does 80 to 90 miles an hour on a 55 mile an hour road. So that's how we're heading down into Mexico. I look down in his driver's seat as we're leaving Tucson, and he has a pistol underneath his seat. This guy's a total stranger to me. I'm like, look, that's a serious issue, because literally lots of people accidentally bring a gun into Mexico and they're in jail for multi-years. Not only a gun, any gun accessories, bullets, holsters, you name it. If you have a gun in Mexico, it's jail time. So I'm like, you got me the gun. We're not taking the gun to Mexico. So he hands it off to his buddy. So we get down to the checkpoint where we have to pull out our ID to get our visa. I forgot my wallet. And we're already 100 miles down into Mexico. And so we turn to Lane, who's this old guy, speaks Spanish, has been there forever. He's like, it's not a problem. You don't need anything. So we go into this booth. He puts a $20 bill on the counter. He says, my friend here needs a visa. And the guy takes the cash and says, what's your friend's name? And so literally it's going from whatever I tell him is in my visa to keep going down into Mexico. So my only proof of my identification is a visa now. As soon as we have all our documents, Lane starts drinking. We pull over, he gets all this Bacardi. The only person now that speaks Spanish is completely belligerent drunk. And he's in the back of the van. His stories start rolling, like he's in search and rescue. And one thing they would do when they were going off to search for lost people or bodies is they would literally challenge everybody in the bus to climb out of the bus, and then using climbing holes, they'd have to climb around the bus while it's driving down the freeway. I was like, that's nuts. He goes, no, that was just the first part. The next time, we would have to climb to the roof of the bus, over the front of the bus, under the driving bus on the freeway, up the back, and you had to do that whole loop before you climb back in your window. He goes, he got so good at all this, there was a Mexican official that was lost in a cave, splunking, and they literally the military sent him a C-130 and said, put whatever you want in it, we need this guy back alive. And so he claimed he filled the C-130 with plastic explosives, ammunition, everything he couldn't get past the border, and he had hidden it throughout Mexico in caves. But by then I was thinking, okay, the Bacardi's speaking, the guy's full of it. He then let me know that last time he was in Mexico, he escaped by hiding in the trunk of a car because a dive mission he owned had killed 12 people. And so he is a wanted criminal in Mexico, and he's now the only one in our van that speaks English. And now I realize how serious this escapade has taken, and we're still heading farther and farther down into Mexico. So now we get to our first checkpoint. Our only Spanish speaker is completely drunk. And at that checkpoint, the main military guard is starting to play with Ryan's nipple piercings. Things are getting really weird. Then Lane puts another $20 bill on the dash, and as the guy goes to take the 20, he notices down in the seat. Sorry, that's He notices down in the seat the holster. All of a sudden, all machine guns are at our heads. They bail us out of the car. They pull out everything. They literally strip search us and look for anything else. They can't find anything else. They then take the 20 and they tell us to get the heck out of there. So then we get down to central Sonora, a place called Guaymas, and we pick up our fourth person. This is where it starts to get weird. Our fourth person is this local dude with a chihuahua. Except it's not this kind of chihuahua. His chihuahua is dressed like this. And so now we are the 4 amigos and a chihuahua. And we are heading down to raise sunken shrimp trawlers. So we get to our next checkpoint. And this time, bigger guns, more military, and one of them digs in the ashtray and finds bullets. So now we're back on the ground with machine guns to our head, full search. They pull everything, they test the air with drug-sniffing dogs in our scuba tanks. Hours later, we get back into the car, and we finally get down to Culiacan, and we're actually living amongst, or basically renting from the narco hideouts where they're actually making drugs. I have no idea what's going on by now. I'm just completely lost what's going on. But to get us out to the sunken boats, we actually hire a mule. So this guy's boat is specifically for running drugs north. And it's the craziest boat I've ever seen. The engine is a 250 horsepower pull start with a tiller. No starter, nothing power. And the boat now, we're in this boat and we're going like 60 miles an hour up the Sea of Cortez, trying to find the sunken boats that are right out here in this marker. We get out there, Lane doesn't want to get in, so it's Ryan and I, but Ryan's dive gear is all duct tape. And as we dive deeper, it gets murky and murky. Lane says, you're not getting in this boat until you come up to us with a fistful of dirt or something to prove you found the boat. He gets the boat to get started and he's ready to leave us out there until we go down into the dark murkiness and bring up something to prove to him there are no boats down there. But the biggest fear is you dive down into a bunch of nets and you get caught in the darkness with nobody else to help you get out. We bring up some mud, he's like, all right, no boats, it's time to get out of there. So we return, we're gonna almost to Tucson, but the problem now is Lane hits the Bacardi again. As we hit the night military checkpoint, and literally we're only a day in by now. Nobody knows I have even left Tucson. And now we're stuck at a night military checkpoint. And Lane tries to get out of that van with those pesky doors and he opens the wrong door. Jams, he body checks it, flies out the window in front of the military guards, and then machine guns again. And he's angry, he's the only one who speaks Spanish, and he's cussing everybody out. And by now, I am sick of this whole escapade. And so, I don't speak English. Lane is cussing at them, cussing at their mothers, cussing at their uncles. And they have all machine guns on him, and by then I am like, kill him. Shoot him. Let us go. We have no problem with you, your family, your mothers, and they're finally like, get him and get him out of here. So we finally get back into Tucson, and the crazy thing is people ask me, oh, what'd you do this weekend? I was like, no, not much. But the crazy thing is I was just seconds away sometimes to be completely missing. And you might think, oh, the story ends there. What's crazy though is a couple months later, I get a job as a boat safety man on the movie The Postman. Kevin Costner, and they need a pit mine in the middle of Arizona, and they need a boat. And I'm one of the few people in Tucson that has a boat, because I used to build them. So they hired me to be on The Postman, and they built all this stuff that they're gonna then explode. But that night, they literally are playing The Sound of Music in a post-apocalyptic movie, and I'm standing behind Kevin Costner as he's directing all this. And then things start blowing up. And literally in those circles, those things blew up, and then Lane Larson comes out of the explosions. He is their pyrotechnic expert. So pretty much everything he had said drunkenly was actually all fact. And the other crazy thing is Lane then, 10 years later, passed away. It's sad, but the irony is he died by falling off a ladder, a small ladder. So that's my story. Moral of the story I would hope to be is stay calm, throw yourself into what you want, you make it happen, but the reality is don't go to Mexico with strangers. That's the end.